Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, which I'm rain, shine, or anything between. We're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Bounces,
and welcome to another off-season episode where not much in the way of news, but there's been a lot of talk about coach power rankings as of late, especially in the on-three sphere. Cocaine Willie did a really good episode on how they would rank the Big 12 head coaches. Shout out Fireball Matt for having the guts to put Colin Klein last in a K-State podcast. I don't agree with the decision, but I admire the guts that takes. So go listen to that episode. But Connor and I love drafts, and I was listening to that episode and was inspired to think, how would we do this episode? So we're going to be doing a coaches draft where each of us draft a head coach, offensive and defensive coordinator, offensive and defensive assistant, and then a recruiting coordinator. It'll be a snake draft style. Connor gets the first pick. But before we get into the actual drafting, there are two pieces of actual news that we want to address. The first one is actually pretty serious, and that is the D. Scott Fritchen story, who's having some medical trouble. So just keep him in your mind. I believe he's doing well and recovering, just from what I know. I'm not part of the family. I'm not really in the know. I just know that he had a pretty serious medical emergency and is recovering in the hospital now. So obviously we wish him the best in that regard.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy thing to see on Twitter. Just not something you ever really expect. But yeah, I hope he's doing well. I think he had to go fund me up, and I think it's like pretty close to hitting its goal. So hopefully he's on the mend and whatnot. But yeah, keep him in your thoughts.
Yeah. Then the other piece of news is a lot lighter, and that is that K-State will be allowing beer sales throughout the alcohol sales, not just beer, throughout the entirety of Bill Snyder Family Stadium for this upcoming football season. I'm not a big drinker. It really doesn't affect me. The part that would have affected me is if it ended reentry, which it hasn't, which I'm a little sad about. But, I mean, one step at a time, and it's an increase in revenue that now that we have to wear a pretty nasty bright green patch on our uniform, which, by the way, I don't care about. I just think it's not going to look great, but it's a small patch. I can live with it.
Yeah. I won't spend too much time on the patch, but yeah, I was not expecting that, but it wouldn't have been my choice. But it's an extra $1 million a year for the department. I was hoping for a little more, but if we'll see what other conferences get, and then kind of judge based off that. So we're either setting the market or we're going to be way off. So we'll see. But yeah, and then hopefully we figure out a sponsorship of our own as well. But yeah, re-entry though, super awesome. Or the beer sales are finally happening around the stadium, way overdue. But yeah, I was really surprised that re-entry is going to be around, because I was always under the impression that you couldn't do both. I always thought that at least the company line on it was that there was I guess some either contractual reason or there's a insurance issue or something like that. It may have just been a please let us kick this can down the road statement. But the thing that's kind of given me hope right now is that the FAQs online says that reentry will initially remain in effect. And what that kind of tells me is that it's going to be phased out. And I think it should. I totally understand that people have tailgate traditions and stuff that they like. But just my personal view on it, I think the west side of the stadium being half empty at the start of every third quarter, no matter how big the game is not just bad for the competitive environment, but I think it's genuinely a bit embarrassing on the K-State fan base, when that's not the image that we should have the fan base, because K-State fans are very passionate, but it gives off the impression that Kansas City fans don't care. And I'm not saying that everyone that does that doesn't care. I'm just saying that's the optics of it. So I hope that's eventually where we end up. But regardless, big step in the right direction, I think, for just kind of modernizing the stadium experience. And I'm looking forward to seeing like the menu that they'll have, the locations that they're going to sell things at, and just other associated stuff.
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably one on each of the corners, like in those. I think they're called the fan favorites sections or something like that. I know there's one in each corner of the stadium because there's one directly behind where I normally sit.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of the ones, like on the east side at least, like they probably aren't equipped to like handle like high volume alcohol sales, or there's going to be at least some small ones, especially like the ones with like volunteer like high school students. Like I don't think they're going to let them pass out beers. So
probably not. I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, but I'm curious to see how they're going to handle it. I imagine there will be some hiccups early on. And I'm curious also what the demand is going to be, because I think that's been a concern, is managing traffic, because like the concourse is already yet pretty congested at times. So like, because alcohol sales is going to make that even worse, probably. But is it going to be manageable or not is something I'm curious about. But we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that works out. Those first couple of games I think will be very telling, not only for beer sales, but throughout the entire season. But now we can get into today's exercise of the head coaching draft. Now, note, this is a head coaching draft, so it has to be one of the 16 sitting Big 12 head coaches that is your selection. We flipped a coin before this. I won and elected to defer, so that way I could get my first pick at offensive coordinator, because it's a snake draft. So, Connor, who is going to be, and I guess the prerogative for this is your team. Like, you can make up whatever you want about your team. So if you want your team to be in Vegas, it can be in Vegas. If you want it to be in Kansas, it can be in Kansas. So it is your hypothetical team that you are building this coaching staff for, not one. It's like replacement level player for baseball. It's imaginary.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I have not thought at all about where my hypothetical team would be situated. I guess, I don't know. I'm trying to think about a place that needs a college football team. Like some random small town in Kansas would be great. We could put them in Burlington, and we could have like a nuclear themed mascot, like
the Burlington Isotopes.
Yeah, Burlington Isotope, the Burlington like super mutants from Fallout.
Oh, this is gonna be a great episode. I can already tell.
So something like that, I guess. And for actual head coach, there's a few that I'm kind of stuck between, because like I think there's a few solid options actually for this, and I think it's 3 in particular that I'm looking at here. But I guess to fit with my team's identity, which super mutants, if you don't know from Fallout, I don't really know much about them other than like they're big and like smarter than you'd think, basically.
Some of them, oh god, I'm not getting into the Fallout lore dump. Anyway,
yeah, but so for that, like a big coach that has done better than you might expect is Kalani Sitake.
So Kalani Sitake is running a team of super mutants in Burlington, Kansas.
Indeed, he is. Well, they're metaphorical super mutants. I guess I shouldn't, exclude real ones, but we haven't had any scholarship offers out to any yet.
Said, why Kalani Sitake?
Well, there were a few other guys on my list that I could have gone with, and I was stuck between them. And I'm curious to see if you take one of the other two. I feel like you probably will. But I've been really impressed with his adaptability coming into the Big 12. And frankly, last year and even the year before, I didn't think BYU on paper was a great team. And they have really outperformed expectations, especially last year. Last year, they really outperformed how I thought that they would do. And did it with a true freshman quarterback that really was not like big huge get in Kalani Sitake, he's been there a while. He's been through some downturns, but weathered them and come out a better coach. And he's someone that frankly coming to the Big 12, I honestly thought might not be long for the league. And he has completely flipped that narrative on his head and has kind of cemented himself as one of the top coaches in the conference, I think. So I've gone from really not considering him that highly to really thinking he's among the best in the conference.
And I think Kalani Sitake, I think the most interesting part about him is that I think I need to preface this by saying I do think he is a good coach. I don't think he works half as well anywhere else as he does at BYU. I think that is a unique situation for multiple reasons that I'm not going to get into today. That is a unique situation where he is set up to succeed, even in different ways than Colin Klein is set up to succeed in Manhattan as K-State's coach. If in a hypothetical world where Crumble Cookies doesn't pony up a bag to keep Kalani Sitake, which is still going to be one of the funniest things to throw in Penn State's face years from now, is I don't think he would do as well at Penn State because the culture difference there would just be so weird. Kalani Sitake is the perfect culture fit for BYU specifically, which is why I wasn't going to take him. I wasn't going to take him just because my hypothetical team, again, imaginary, would just be some random Midwestern school somewhere, Kansas, Missouri, in the true Midwest, the Plains region, basically. And I don't think that he would work as well here as he does at BYU. And that's not because he's a bad coach. It's just because it's a very unique situation, which I think leads me into my pick in that this coach has shown, if nothing else, that he is adaptable because he's coached in multiple regions of the United States, whether it be the true South, whether it be in Texas, or whether it be in the state of Kansas. And it is the coach that terrifies me most in the Big 12, and it's Houston's Willie Fritz. I have a feeling that because what I thought was going to happen was you were going to take Kenny Dillingham and I was going to take Willie Fritz, or vice versa. But Sitake, I think, is a good pick. But I mean, Willie Fritz is the only knock against Willie Fritz is that he's old. That's it. He has proven everything else that a head coach could prove that's not won a national title. And honestly, if there is a coach that could get Houston to that level, or really anyone to that level, it would be Willie Fritz. I'm not saying that Houston is a national title contender. They're not. They're a Big 12 contender, which I guess makes them a contender for the college football playoff. But just look at the turnarounds that Willie Fritz has already led. And to me, he is the best coach in the Big 12 if you're looking purely at coaching acumen. If you're looking at, taking situation into account, yes, Kalani Sitake is probably number one. Just pure coach, Willie Fritz, and I'm not sure there's anyone in the same stratosphere.
Yeah, I mean, you named the other two guys I was thinking about. I was thinking about taking Fritz or Dillingham. I was actually leaning towards Willie Fritz until I started talking. And as I was talking about super mutants, I just felt compelled to take Kalani Sitake. is the primary reason here. I'm thinking about putting together a group of brawny guys that maybe deserve a little more credit than they get. And I'm thinking, this sounds like somebody I know. And I just felt like I needed to make that pick. But I do kind of agree with you. Outside of the thematic choice that I made, I think Willie Fritz is probably like the best pick. And I was pretty close to taking him myself. So I have no issue with your pick there. I do think, at least for me, I've cooled a little on the Satake only working at BYU thing. But that's something that he's going to have to continue to show over time. I think, because if he continues to sustain success at this level, I'll think that he can at least be decent at other locations. But Willie Fritz, yeah, he's won basically everywhere. He's also a Kansas guy. He coached here and played here, and he I really don't like having to face his teams because they're always solid, they're always good, and they seem to be on an upswing right now. And yeah, I'm really happy he's 73 because I do not want him in this conference much longer.
I think he's only 62.
Is he really? I thought he was in his 70s.
I think he's early 60s, like 62, 63.
Okay, neither of us are right. He's 66.
Okay, well, split the difference.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's the only knock on him is he's old.
Yeah, so it's very strong pick. I think probably the best pick available, I think, is what you just made there.
Okay. Now we move on to the offensive coordinator, which I have 3 names staring me in the face. One was my other head coaching candidate. One is Colin Klein, and the other is another new head coach that has state in its university's title. But I am going to go with Colin Klein here as the offensive coordinator. And I think that this is a really good tie of identities between Willie Fritz and Colin Klein, both being heavy Midwestern guys who are known for a physical brand of football and just having a lot of grit in their game. But I also think that Colin Klein as an offensive mind is one of the top in the conference, and that's including offensive coordinators. I will say that if it wasn't limited to just head coaches, I would have a good hard think about Andy Kotelnicki. Even though his star has faded after Penn State, that man still terrifies me just because of what he's able to do with his creativity on offense. But if you're looking just for a line-em-up ball coach who's still going to give you a really good schematic advantage as an offensive coordinator, Colin Klein has shown that he can do that at 2 different stops now. So that's going to be my offensive coordinator. I have a feeling the next person off the board is going to be one of the 2 I named.
Yeah, I mean, I can't fault you for taking Colin Klein. I was really interested where he was going to go in this draft because I wasn't 100% set on taking him, but I also was I don't think he's going to be there if I get to offensive assistant. So and I really wanted to take him, but I also didn't want to just make the homer pick to make the homer pick. But I think he proved well enough as an offensive coordinator that he's not necessarily a homer pick there. So I think that's a strong pick. You're right. I am about to take one of the other guys that you mentioned. But I there's a reason that he has been as sought after as he has been, particularly with how young of a coach he is. And so, I mean, yeah, there's a reason he's got the reins now at K-State, and a Willie Fritz, Colin Klein staff there. That's a really interesting staff. I mean, give Klein another excellent coach to learn from going to Bill Snyder to Chris Kleiman to Mike Elko, and throw Willie Fritz in the mix too. He's really getting a really broad range of coaches to learn from. And gosh, he would get into the head coaching world after like this tree, like with such a depth of experience. Like what an asset he would be after that. And yeah, two Midwest guys as well. Two guys with Kansas roots. So yeah, if you're going to be a Kansas school, like you're going to have a really strong time recruiting this region. But I guess I'm kind of putting together a West Coast staff here. I did not intend to do that, but I'm taking Kenny Dillingham here.
Yeah.
And I did not come into this expecting to put together a West Coast sort of staff. I didn't even come into this expecting to take Kalani Sitake as my head coach, but I've done it. And I feel like as of this point with this coaching staff, this is with Willie Fritz and Colin Klein, you're getting a very business-oriented staff. Like, I think they're both like, they're not like just like mean like people who are like completely serious all the time, but like they definitely have a seriousness about them, I think, at least in how they carry themselves. But Kalani Sitake and Kenny Dillingham, like this is very much not saying that they're bad coaches because they're very good coaches, but it is very much a vibes-based staff as well. Like this is going to be a like high morale locker room with Sitake and Dillingham kind of at the helm here.
Yeah, I want to give flowers to, and the reason why I thought Dillingham was going to be your head coaching pick was just because. Okay, that's my cat. The the reason why I thought Dillingham was going to be the head coaching pick was because Arizona State was awful at football whenever he took over. And he was kind of like this, not necessarily a flyer hire, but what he's been able to do in building up the support for Arizona State to me has been nothing short of amazing. Because Arizona State, for all intents and purposes, before Kenny Dillingham, was more or less a dead program. And in some ways, after Herm Edwards, it was a dead program just because of the situation that he left them with. And Kenny Dillingham took that program and just out of love for it was able to elevate it to a level that I don't think anyone had any expectations for other than maybe Kenny Dillingham himself. And, he's still dealing with resource shortcomings, but compared to when he got there, oh my God, it is a night and day difference. So you get your coaching staff has two really, really good skill sets that I think complement each other, and that Dillingham as an OC can certainly build the program up and get those resources in a way that I don't think a lot of other coaches can. And Kalani Sitake can put on a really good on the field product and maintain that level of support just with his energy. So I those two, it's like it's a beautiful staff, like in terms of building up a program.
Yeah, and another thing where they complement each other is Dillingham, I think, as an offensive guy, is very much a skill position coach. Like sometimes skill position coaches just have a look about them, and Kenny Dillingham has that look. Like, and Kalani Sitake, I think he gives the presence of a defensive coach, but I'm pretty sure he's an offensive lineman.
He was a fullback.
Okay, then he has that presence about him as well, and he brings a different approach, I guess, to offense. Kenny Dillingham, I think about as being more of like a agile, like quick offensive mind. And Kalani Sitake, he can do that, but he's very adaptable and is but at his core, I think he really wants to be able to kind of have a bit of Chris Kleiman to him, and that in his heart of hearts, he wants to just run the ball every play and like be better than you at executing. Like, I think that's what he wants in his heart of hearts. So those are two philosophies that maybe contradict each other a bit, but I think with the personalities they have, I think they could complement each other pretty well too. So, and for what it's worth, Kenny Dillingham has absolutely shown a willingness to run the ball a lot too. Like maybe even to the detriment of the future mental health of some of his running backs. But
Cam Scadaboo was insane before he got there.
That's true. We can't really blame Kenny for that. So, he's exonerated. But I guess I get a defensive coordinator now too, and I'm sorry, man, but I got to keep it on the West Coast here, or at least in the western area of the country. With this, I was not planning on taking this guy, but for staff synergy, I got to do it. I'm taking Morgan Scalley here, and I know I'm disappointing you because
I actually that's who I was going to take.
I know that's why I'm disappointing you.
Yeah.
Because I know you wanted this guy, and yeah, I like this is like a staff I was not expecting to put together, but I've got the head coaches of 3 of the 4 former Pac-12, or no, BYU wasn't the Pac-12. 2 of the 4. And then BYU as well. And then I really kind of made a Western expansion here with my staff. But Scally, I mean, it remains to be seen how good of a head coach he'll be. But he was one of, if not the best, defensive coordinator for quite a while in college football. There's a reason he was so highly thought of. There's a reason he got the very rarely seen head coach in waiting tag publicly. So he's that valuable of a resource as a defensive coordinator. They couldn't afford to lose him. And, yeah, I got to have this guy on my staff.
If you're curious, Brent Brennan was a wide receivers coach, if you need to keep that in mind for the future. But the reason why I wanted Morgan Scalley was he plays a very physical brand of defense that I think blends very well. Granted, I think that with both of our staffs, it blends very well with a very physical style of defense. But Morgan Scalley's ability to coach man coverage in the pass game it's one of 2. The other being the defensive coordinator, defensive backs coach at Notre Dame, because Notre Dame plays man coverage like 70% of the time, like a borderline reckless amount of times. But Morgan Scalley is one of the better defensive minds when it comes to molding players into the best that they can be as defensive pieces. Which, looking at the list, you took like the premier defensive name in my opinion. Note how I say the premier one. There's still another defensive mind here. Technically, there are 3, depending on how you frame it. But I'm going to go with the most obvious one, and that's Dave Aranda, who, yes, he's been dead man walking at Baylor as their head coach going on 2-3 years now. But I still believe in his ability to coach a defense. I think where he gets in trouble is sort of molding the players to learning that defense. Because once he has players that actively learn the defense, and this isn't me calling people who play for Dave Aranda dumb. I've read some of his coverage philosophies and some of his coverage rules. You have to have a PhD to understand that. And so he runs a very complicated defensive system. In a lot of ways, he's like Bruce Weber. He runs a very complicated defensive system, but when it works, it really, really works. And although I don't like him as a head coach, I think that he would still be a really good defensive coordinator because he could just focus on coaching the defense. He could just focus on instilling the defensive rules like he did at LSU, like he did at Utah State, like he did at Hawaii before then. So the other defensive options, by the way, which should tell you that our pickings are going to be pretty slim when it comes to defensive assistant, is Jimmy Rogers, who was a linebacker and I guess Deion Sanders. Everyone else, Brent Brennan, wide receivers. Kenny Dillingham was a quarterback who had to medically retire. Kalani Sitake was a fullback. Scott Satterfield. Deion Sanders. Willie Fritz, kind of an offensive guy. Jimmy Rogers. Lance Leipold, I have no idea. His defensives have sucked, though. Eric Morris is an offensive guy, a Mike Leach guy. Sonny Dykes is an air raid guy. Joey McGuire is a money merchant. Scott Frost has never produced a good defense during his existence. Oh, God. Is the best option left for defensive assistant Rich Rod? Oh, my God.
Maybe the pickings may very well be pretty slim at this point on the defensive side of the ball. Lance Leipold was a quarterback, and he's always been an offensive coach, which I don't know why I always kind of assumed he just kind of has the vibe of a defensive guy to me. Like, I don't know what it is, but like also like his teams have always been offensive teams, so like it makes sense based on the product they put out there. But yeah, Rich Rod, I think he was a defensive back, and he's actually coached on both sides of the ball. I mean, the last like 25 years, it's been offense or head coach. But he did actually start out on the defensive side of the ball, and then in 1997 he switched to being offensive coordinator at Tulane. But up until that point, he'd been either head coach or a defensive assistant, which I thought was actually kind of interesting. So you don't see coaches switch sides of the ball that often.
Sure. And now I get to pick whether we go offensive or defensive assistant first, since this is my pick. I'm going to go defensive assistant because, yes, Rich Rod has more experience. Yes, technically he coached on the defensive side. He hasn't done it in 20 years. Do I think Jimmy Rogers was a good hire for Iowa State? No. Do I think Iowa State will be one of the worst teams in the Big 12 this upcoming year? Probably. Do I think that they will be absolute dog tier garbage? No, I think they will be bad, but not like offensively bad. They will just be like a 4-8, 5-7 team who will catch someone sleepwalking because it's the Big 12. For the love of God, do not let it be us. But I am going to go Jimmy Rogers just as the defensive assistant, more out of necessity than anything else, which taking Jimmy Rogers over really a lot of people still left on the board feels nasty. But, I mean, when it comes to defensive minds, we're down to one.
Yeah. I mean, who did you take as your defensive coordinator? Did you take Rich Rod?
No, as DC, I took Aranda.
Oh, that's right. Okay. I completely forgot to type it, and I forgot who you said. But, yeah. No, I mean, Dave Aranda, like, I gave him some thought for sure. And I guess some of it, is recency bias because he's really struggled as a head coach as of late. And Morgan Scalley, I guess we haven't seen it yet. Even though Dave Aranda, he had some incredible defenses at LSU. Morgan Scalley, I guess, had a longer sustained success at a high level, maybe. But not a bad pick at all. Actually, a really good pick, I think, at DC. Dave Aranda. The only issue is like the hypothetical recruit like that has no idea what's going on with his governors. But like ideally, I guess if he's just defensive coordinator, he may be able to work with that a little better. Maybe with him not directing recruiting, maybe they'll be able to kind of find somebody that can like get him guys that fit what he needs more efficiently, maybe. But I that's a really strong defensive coordinator pick, and I think there were two obvious picks for defensive coordinator, and then I do not blame him for going defensive assistant here because the pickings are slim.
Yeah. Anyway, who are you taking? I'm guessing it has to be Rich Rod because otherwise you're shoehorning someone else. Okay, I guess technically Deion Sanders could be the other.
I'm not taking Deion Sanders. I'm taking Rich Rod. No disrespect to Deion and his defensive ability as a player, but I think it's Rich Rod. Like, and it's weird because I honestly do think of Deion Sanders as an offensive coach, even though like he was a defensive player. Like, I think it's just because like his best teams have made their like made offense their calling card. So that's, I guess, just kind of the bias there. But yeah, so Rich Rod's my defensive assistant. That's like the best available defensive assistant here. A lot of offensive coaches in the league, not good for the Big 12 doesn't play defense narrative, but that's where we're at.
And now you get offensive assistant. Or I guess you could take your recruiting coordinator next if you want to go that route.
Yeah, that's true. And like, there's honestly like recruiting coordinator, like there are actually a couple of like pretty solid options here. But offensive assistant is a bit thinner, I think. Like there's still good options available, but we are kind of hitting the point where, you know, the number of like good head coaches has unfortunately dwindled pretty heavily at this point. So I'm I think I'm gonna go with the recruiting coordinator here. And there's a couple of guys here. I think there's really like two like good options like among these head coaches. Like, and the problem is I don't really like either of these guys as head coaches, but I do think that they would be fantastic recruiting coordinators. So I think I have to maybe go with the one I dislike less right now, and that's Deion Sanders.
Yeah, that I know who the other guy is, and yes, I will be picking him afterwards. But Deion as a recruiting coordinator plays to all of Deion Sanders' strengths when it comes to interpersonal relationships, and it also, you know, I'm not gonna pretend like this would be the main priority, but it's also probably better for his health to be a recruiting coordinator of everything else.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I mean I think he's proven that he can be a good like a relationship builder and like acquirer of talent. I mean, like, yeah, we can talk about his abilities as a head coach and overall program builder and developer. Like, because Colorado was not very good last year at all. But despite that, he's still been able to recruit pretty well. Yeah, the Deion hype train has definitely dwindled to this point, and it's probably out of steam. But he's still been able to get at least decent guys to Colorado, and like, there's a reason that when he was at Jackson State that they really kind of came onto the map because like he was able to get guys that really had like for any other head coach no business being there, and he was able to get them there. So, you know, Deion has shown, if nothing else, he's got recruiting chops. Like, and he is. I think a lot of people do think he's not genuine. I don't really agree with that. Like, I think you can think he's abrasive, but I don't think he's inauthentic. And I think that goes a long way as a recruiting coordinator, especially in today's college football.
I think the thing with Deion is Deion Sanders kind of created a persona for himself early on to deal with pressure, and that's where primetime came from. And I think that people at first conflated the two to being the same thing, almost to the point where Deion Sanders himself in public started believing that it was the same thing. I genuinely believe Deion Sanders when he says the things that he does say. It's just sometimes difficult to see where primetime ends and Deion Sanders begins. But I mean, that's a fine line for anyone to walk. But the amount of recruiting clout that he would bring to any program is immense, even as someone who wouldn't be the head coach, as someone who would just be the recruiting coordinator in your case. Plus, he has done well recruiting the sort of California Mountain West area, which you wouldn't expect because he's a Florida guy. But my pick is the other guy, and it's not going to be a popular pick, and it's going to be Joey McGuire, because if there is one thing that he has proven he was able to do, and it's recruit. He did it at Baylor, which was his previous stop as, I believe, the recruiting coordinator there. So he was able to recruit even before Cody Campbell got involved, and he was able to recruit to Texas Tech even before Cody Campbell was just being able to throw money at people. And in some ways, how do I say this? I think that Joey McGuire is a better culture fit for the coaching staff that I have built, not only because he's been with Dave Aranda before on his staff, but just sort of more regionally. Joey McGuire has proven that he's able to recruit and he's able to get talent to Texas Tech, which, let me tell you, that's the only way that Texas Tech has really been able to win lately, is just straight up out-talenting people. And I'm not saying that that is an illegitimate philosophy. If you have the money, if you have the resources to do that, by all means, that is a perfectly legitimate way to build a roster. That does not mean that he is a good head coach. It means he is a good recruiter who can get talent into place and then just have it beat people. If there's an X's and O's competition, Joey McGuire might be at the bottom. But if it's getting guys in place, he's probably number one.
Yeah, this was the other guy I was like kind of thinking about. I just didn't want to take him because I don't like him very much. So that's where I'm at. And yeah, I mean, I agree. That's the one thing he's been consistently good at, is recruiting. Even before like money completely took over recruiting. I know people say that's the only reason Texas Tech gets excellent recruits, and that's definitely a reason why they've risen to like the level of recruiting they had. But he was still pulling in like really, really good recruits. Maybe not with the same quantity or same frequency, I should say. But he was still doing it. And that's because he's a really solid recruiter, especially in the state of Texas. And that's valuable really anywhere in the region. Like if you can recruit Texas and you have those like ties to Texas high school football coaches and they respect you, like that is a invaluable pipeline. Especially in the state of Texas, but even in surrounding states, like they are going to dip into Texas a ton as well. K-State did that a lot this past recruiting cycle. So like there's nothing wrong with taking Joey McGuire. Yeah, we do not like him. Like we don't really like anything Texas Tech right now. But like that's a job that we know for a fact he is good at.
Which leads to the last round, which is offensive assistant, where you are very much spoiled for choice here, even with the remaining options. But my pick is going to be Eric Morris. And a big reason for that is if you're looking at, this is probably the first pick that is not like this clicks together. Because Eric Morris is very much an air raid guy, which that's not what Colin Klein is. That's not what Willie Fritz has ever been. But Eric Morris, specifically for me, is going to be the quarterback's coach. No, not just because he coached Patrick Mahomes, but he's coached a lot of other quarterbacks. Drew Mestemaker, the most recent example, and then, of course, Cam Ward at Incarnate Word. Plus, he's a Mike Leach disciple that always gets bonus points for me when it comes to offensive coaching. But I don't think you could go wrong with there's a name that I would take next if I was in your position. There's another name that I wouldn't fight you about, and there's another name that you could technically pull that would shock me. But yeah, Eric Morris as quarterback's coach would be my pick for offensive assistant, just because his experience in the passing game, where yes, Colin Klein's very good in the running game. And I'm not downplaying his ability to scheme the passing game, but just getting a little bit of that up-tempo, veer and shoot flavor with Eric Morris, plus his ability to coach quarterbacks, I think would be a massive advantage for the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think this is a really strong pick. He was definitely one of the ones I was thinking about because I still wasn't 100% sure who I was going to take here because there's several options. There's definitely a few that I've like just already ruled out, but like there's I think probably like 3 that I like seriously considering, and Eric Morris is one of them. And I mean, anytime that obviously like it's not just because he coached Patrick Mahomes, but the offense he had as a whole is the number 2 offense in the country that year, and like he won't be the offensive coordinator, but I think that's even better because you're taking a guy that was not effective as an OC and giving him less responsibility, more ability to focus in on just one job, whatever that may be. So I'm like a very big fan of that pick. So that's I guess that takes us into the last pick then. Yeah, right.
The last pick, and then we get to talk about the undrafteds.
The Misters irrelevant.
Yeah.
And well, here there's 5 guys available, and I'm looking at this list, and there's at least 2 that maybe on paper might be a better pick than the guy I'm going to take, but I just am not really bought in on them, or I don't like their resume maybe as much as like some others, or they're just people I don't think would gel with the staff that I put together. And another thing to think about also is guys who maybe didn't have it quite right one place that maybe like can get back to form with lesser responsibility, and also get to an area that like really isn't unfamiliar for them. So I don't know if this is the guy that you were thinking of, so I'm curious what you think about this, but I'm taking Scott Frost for my offensive assistant.
Ooh, that was not who I was thinking. I was almost certain that Scott Frost was going to be one of the undrafteds. But
I want to know who you thought it was going to be and why.
I thought that you were going to pick Sonny Dykes. I thought Sonny Dykes was the leader in the clubhouse.
I can explain why. It's because he's a dick. I don't think he should be with the coaching staff.
Fair enough. I thought Dykes was gonna be like the easy pick. The one that I wouldn't have fought you on was Brent Brennan, because he was a decent wide receivers coach. Scott, the one that I didn't expect Scott Frost to be picked at all. The other one that I thought was possible that I was going to give you a lot of crap about was Satterfield.
Oh no way I was taking Satterfield. I do not believe in him at all. Same with Brent Brennan. A little more but I'm really not bought in on Brent Brennan yet. Most of his experience has been at the G5 level, and San Jose State was never incredible with Brent Brennan. Brent Brennan, I'm pretty sure his career coaching record is
439 or something like that.
Yeah, he's below. Yeah, he's 47-60 and 0-4 in bowl games. So I'm not really moved by that. And he went in his only good season at San Jose State. I know this is not for head coaches, but his only good season at San Jose State was the COVID year. They went 7-1, which was really good. But then he followed that up with 5-7, 7-5, 7-6. But the 7-6 year, they somehow tied for first in the Mountain West.
Mountain West football, maybe.
So good for them, I guess. But yeah, I still don't buy it with Brent Brennan. I think he can maybe be a decent assistant though, but I don't know. I was just sitting here thinking about Scott Frost. He's from Nebraska. He spent a year at K-State as a GA. And he proved at UCF that he can be a really good coach at this level. And he was also with Oregon during prime Chip Kelly. Like, he was the receivers coach from 09 to 12 and the OC from 13 to 15, and then took over at UCF. So, like, and with that, he actually also spent time on the defensive side of the ball. He was a linebackers coach in Northern Iowa and the co-DC in Northern Iowa in 2008 before going straight to Oregon to be the receivers coach, which is crazy. I did not know that was his trajectory. But I know that he had a crazy fallout at Nebraska, so this is like definitely kind of like a wild card pick in that regard. But I'm kind of interested in the idea of getting Scott Satterfield on a coaching staff that is filled with guys that are like mostly like big vibes guys and like are not going to like drive him to alcoholism. So that I'm curious what a positive environment could bring out in Scott Frost, especially not as a head coach, but just as an offensive assistant, which is a position he's been successful in before. So, like, I was not expecting to take Scott Frost coming into this. Actually,
I didn't expect you to take Scott Frost.
I was sitting there and I was like, man, I don't want to take Sonny Dykes. Man, I really don't want to take Brent Brennan. I definitely don't want to take Scott Satterfield. Lance Leipold. Come on. Like, I was like, okay, well, I guess let's look at Scott Frost a bit. And I was like, you know, I can make this work. You know, like, maybe this is a stupid pick. Maybe like this is going to come out and people are going to be like, what are you doing, man? But like, I don't know. In this moment, I feel like he kind of gels with this staff that I've put together. Like, really the only like kind of awkward outlier here is like maybe Rich Rod. Like, but Rich Rod's kind of seemed to have a bit of a positivity streak to him recently in the media. He was like at media days, he was like, why can't we all just get along, basically? Like, so I think Rich Rod yearns for the Vibe staff.
So the respective coaching staffs that we've built, and then we'll talk about the undrafteds, are mine is head coach Willie Fritz, offensive coordinator Colin Klein, defensive coordinator Dave Aranda, defensive assistant Jimmy Rogers, and then recruiting coordinator is Joey McGuire. Then offensive assistant was Eric Morris. Yours was...
Head coach, got Kalani Sataki. Offensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham. Defensive coordinator, Morgan Scally. And then offensive assistant, Scott Frost. Defensive assistant, Rich Rod. And then recruiting coordinator, Deion Sanders.
So the undrafteds are Arizona's Brent Brennan, Cincinnati's Scott Satterfield, Kansas's Lance Leipold, and then TCU's Sonny Dykes. I think the biggest surprise there is probably Sonny Dykes. But him being a dick is what disqualified him for you, which personally, that's why Lance Leipold was disqualified for me. Plus, I don't think he's that great of a coach. Satterfield, I could see working. Like, of these picks, God help me, I think Satterfield is like the best. He's like the best non-demon coach left. Sonny Dykes is probably the best overall coach. And then Brent Brennan's just kind of there. I don't know what to make of him or really what Arizona did this last year.
Yeah. I think Brennan would have fit on my staff because I do think he's like another one of those like kind of good vibes coaches. Like he just always seems very chipper on the sidelines. So that like I think he would have fit. But my issue with him isn't about his attitude or how he presents himself. My issue has always been just I'm not fully bought in on him as a successful football coach. He may like turn my words to dust here, but you know, like I mean, last year he went 9-4 with Arizona, like really good season, but like, gosh, we got absolutely steamrolled by them for the most part, and we only lost by like 4. Like they should have like beat us by like 50. When we played
one of the worst games I've ever seen.
I know. I can't even remember the name of the record.
It didn't get to Oklahoma State. What was it? 19, 20, 21. The Jaron Lewis game. It wasn't even like that where it got funny. It was just miserable.
Yeah, that was the worst part about so many of our games last year is like we were never able to laugh at how bad it was. It was just painful. Yeah, because the Jaron Lewis game, that was just laughable. And like I was able to laugh and like just kind of let go in that game. I was not able to do that in the Arizona game because I was like, this is us at full strength. This is like on paper not a great Arizona team, and like they just steamrolled us. So like that is a point in Brent Brennan's favor for sure. That like Arizona had a really strong year last year, but I'm still I don't know. Like he may put it all together, but like if so, I'd be really curious like what it was that they saw in him from a below 500 record at San Jose State and 3 consecutive below average seasons, except for the one where they barely eclipsed 500 and somehow tied for first in the Mountain West. I do not know how they managed that. Like, props to them, I guess. But
probably losing all their non-cons.
I think that has to be what happened. Yeah, because they went 7-6, but 6-2 in conference. Which never really annoys me. And then Arizona, like, gladly hired him. Like, gosh, that's really crazy to me that happened. Like, because he's always been in Arizona, or he's been a West Coast guy, specifically mostly the Southwest. But like, he was Arizona, Cal Poly, then he was at San Jose State for quite a while, almost a decade. And then he spent like 5 or 6 years at Oregon State as their receivers coach. And then he went back to San Jose State as head coach. And now he's at Arizona. Like, I feel like he kind of skipped some steps and like almost went backwards.
Time is not linear to the Brent Brennan.
I guess, yeah. But yeah, he's been a coach since 1996. But he wasn't a head coach until 2017. And he had a really long leash and he was never incredible. I guess maybe some of it is San Jose State is like not a historically great program. Like that must be part of it. But yeah, they hadn't won a conference championship since 1991 prior to 2020. But like it's the COVID season. Like they might have been the only college in the state of California that played. So
yeah, I feel good about both of our staffs, honestly. I think they're good at very different things. Weirdly enough, I think yours might have the higher ceiling. Mine has probably the higher floor.
I completely agree with that. I was looking at your staff and I was like, that's like a really solid staff day one. I do think if mine gelled, I think it could be really good. Because especially I think my top 3 coaches I think are really strong, but I think you have way more depth on yours as well. Because I'm taking some flyers here. Like Scott Frost is a flyer. Rich Rod, I mean, he's really experienced, but like who's to say a guy with that much head coaching experience would like be good going back down to being a defensive assistant? Like it's hard to say. But like also within the constraints of only Big 12 head coaches, not exactly a lot of attractive options for defensive assistants once we got past like the initial wave of defensive guys. So
before we leave, there have been 2 names that were fired recently, well, semi-recently, that I'm just curious if they would have made your list. You can just add them on. I'm curious if either Mike Gundy or Red Bull Dana would have been taken by you in any capacity. I don't know why those were the 2 names that I was most curious about.
Oh man. I would have considered Dana Holgerson for offensive assistant, but hasn't he been like the OC at Nebraska and like not been great? Or did he get fired from that too?
I think he was like like an offensive assistant. Yeah, at Nebraska. I think he's still there. I want to say.
Oh yeah, he's the OC in Nebraska right now.
Oh, okay.
He was initially hired as an offensive consultant in 2024, and then he took over as the offensive coordinator on November 11th, 2024. So like at the end of the year, and he replaced Marcus Satterfield.
Wow, we've come full circle.
It all starts and ends with Satterfield.
You have any final notes before we sign off? I always love doing these draft episodes just because I think it's a fascinating format, and I think the power ranking system is kind of overdone. I don't want to say overdone because I think that's really like diminutive of other people, but just our spin on it.
I guess the only thing I'll say I think it's really interesting because I do not think Lance Leipold is the worst coach in the Big 12, but I think he was definitively the worst option in this exercise.
Because he was either going to be head coach or nothing, and I wasn't taking him as head coach.
Yeah, like that's like been his main skill set. I think has been like program management, but even then he's really kind of fallen off pretty hard here. And this is, by all accounts, on paper, about to be a really tough year for KU. Like they have some of their own beat writers predicting them to go like 3-9 this year. Like Leipold's seat is about as warm as it could get, I think, given his prior success. Makes you wonder about a potential Kotelnicki handoff, which I really hope not, because I want him to leave and not come back. And
I was so excited when he went to Penn State, and now the bastard's back.
I really would like it if he'd go somewhere where we could like watch him and not live in fear that what he does to others will happen to us. So, but that's just not the world we get to live in, unfortunately. But hopefully this year they just won't have a competent quarterback, and it won't matter. But we'll see.
Like Cole Ballard's the leader in the clubhouse, and I mean he almost beat us once.
Yeah, they did have a Devin Neal though. Like they don't have a Devin Neal.
True. Anyway, I think that wraps up this episode. Thank you all for listening. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdwards00.
I am at Connor Bowser, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store, link found in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. For come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.